Hi, everyone, and happy Wednesday morning. I see that school's getting out in a lot of places, but we are here for our very last professional development until September. And I say that because our early childhood conference is going to be August 10th, 11th, and 12th, and we are super excited. So if you need more information on that, please reach out to me. I will put all of my contact information in the chat box at the end and the link that you can go to see our agenda. We're super excited. But today we have Jenny Miller with us, and she's going to talk about literacy at school and at home, which we know is so important. And we know it's important to be working with our students at home right now. So let's get right to it. Jenny Miller is a literacy expert with the Ann Arbor Public Schools in Ann Arbor, Michigan. She works alongside teachers and students to focus on literacy and achievement in grades pre-K through K-5. Her work includes collaborating with other experts, coaching teachers, and reading intervention. Prior to her current role, she was a classroom teacher. She also provided professional development to new and veteran teachers. She has an early childhood endorsement and an English language arts endorsement from Eastern Michigan University and a master's in the art of teaching. She lives with her husband and has 3 high school children in Saline, Michigan. And Jenny, we feel so honored and fortunate to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for putting this together. She's also going to present for us next year when we get started. So the floor is yours, and thank you again.
Thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you to Dr. Simasek for inviting me, and for everyone for just helping to coordinate everything. So we're going to get started. Today I'm going to be talking to you about literacy at home, as you just heard, but we're going to talk specifically about writing. And the reason why we're going to talk specifically about writing, I have kind of a few things that I want to focus on today. One is that often when we talk about literacy, especially early literacy, we focus heavily on phonics and phonemic awareness and reading, but we know that the actual generation of letters and sounds can really help to solidify those skills and create transfer to other areas of literacy. Second, reading and writing are very reciprocal, and writing motivation matters in that circle of reciprocity. So by focusing on developing engagement and joy around both reading and writing, it's very helpful for our earliest learners. If children can decode, but they can't encode, it can become problematic. So we need them to have both of those skills. And third, all of these things that we're going to be talking about today can be done at home. One thing that we've learned a lot about this year is that home connection to school and how we can help to leverage that for our learners. So the things that we're going to be talking about today can be done at home with materials that can be found around the house. So if there isn't an abundance of text in your students' homes, this is still accessible to them and to their families. So with that, we'll get started. We're going to be focusing on a couple of things. So it looks like we don't have a lot of participants with us in the Zoom, but I know lots of people will be watching it later on the YouTube channel. I love the idea of on-demand professional development for adult learners. So just for everyone who's here, I think we all know by now in this land of Zoom, I'd love for people to use the chat. And I do have some other engagement ideas. Since we do have kind of a small crowd, we'll see how that works. If you'd like to connect beyond today, I'd love to hear from you via email or Twitter. Feel free to get in contact with me around questions from today's presentation, both people who are here today or people who are watching it later. So writing at home, we're going to be talking about space and material, generating ideas, writing partners and what that might look like at home, audience and purpose. And finally, this tends to be a question that I get mostly from like my 1st and 2nd grade teachers and parents, but making it better. How do we make our writing even better, and really with a focus on spelling? So what does that mean? So to get us started today, we're going to watch a little video. This is a video that I made in the spring of 2020. for some of my parents and students who were at home without access to our schools and school buildings. So we're going to watch a little bit of this. As you're watching, be thinking about what students might need to be successful with this activity. What would the space look like, materials, tools, etc.
Hello, today we're going to talk about a little bit of writing. Each day that you're home, it's going to be really important that you write a little bit each day so that you're practicing your letters and your sounds and all the words that you know. Every time you write, it helps your reading, and every time you read, it helps your writing. So we want to keep that going while we're home. So one of the things that you can be doing is you can be writing a little bit about something that you do each day. So yesterday, I took my dogs on a walk and I took a picture. And so today I'm ready to write about that thing that I did yesterday. So you might be thinking about the things that you do each day, and you might start collecting some pictures, or you can draw about the things that you're doing and you can have a drawing. So I got this picture and I just put it on this piece of paper. And I was thinking about what we were doing. So here's my dog, Bella. She's the darker dog and she's 10. And this is my dog, Gus. And actually today is his birthday. He's turning 4 today. So I was thinking about these two dogs, and I was thinking about how they love to go for walks. And I was thinking of a sentence that I could write. So I was thinking I might write, "We went for a walk." So I'm going to write, "We went for a walk." So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to count the words that I'm going to write. So I'm going to say the sentence again, and I'm going to put up a finger for each word. So it's going to go like this. We went for a walk. So my sentence has 5 words in it. So now I'm going to take my pen or my pencil, and I'm going to write lines for each of the words. And I'm going to say those 5 words. We went for a walk. And I'm going to put a period on the end because it's the end of my sentence. So now I'm ready to write. I'm going to think about the first word that I'm going to write. The first word that I'm going to write, "We went for a walk," is we. So I'm going to write we first. We. We starts with a W. You might also know how to spell we because it's one of our sight words, one of our high frequency words. So I know that we has an E on the end. We. So we went for a walk. We went. I'm going to stretch out went. If I get stuck, I can use my letter chart to help me. So went, went. Went sounds like window. So went starts with a W. We went. All right, let's see. We went for a walk. For. The next word is for. Or. I know it starts with a for. I hear an R at the end. For. We went for a. Oh, that's an easy one. I know that one. It's one letter. We went for a. We went for a walk. Walk. There's that W again. I'm going to spell all the sounds that I hear unless I know how to spell the word. And then I'm going to spell it the way that I know that we spell it. We went for a walk. Now I might be done, or I could add another sentence. Let's see. Maybe I want to say who went for the walk. So I could say Gus and Bella like to walk. Okay, let me count it. Gus and Bella like to walk. Ooh, Gus and Bella like to walk. This sentence has 6 words. So I'm going to write it.
So I'm going to pause there. You kind of get the idea of how that lesson or how that video might go. And I found this to be helpful. I did this lesson with students, but then I shared this with parents and with other teachers. So the teachers that I work closely with could have a model for this lesson, and also parents could kind of see the work that we had done so they could support their writers at home. So those questions that we were thinking about: what does the child need at home to be successful? And how could this, or how would this video benefit caregivers? So I know we have a few people here in the Zoom with us. So if you could think and add some ideas to the chat of what the child would need at home to be successful and how this might benefit caregivers at home or our teachers in our schools. So I'll give you just a minute to populate the chat a little bit. Someone noticed that one of the last words that we did had that R controlled vowel. Depending on the development of the child, I would focus, if we'd been working on R controlled vowels, or if we had been working on vowel teams, I would do a little more focus specifically on the phonics that we had been studying and working on. Yes, so one of the things that someone noticed is that I'm showing parents how we can write with the sounds rather than perfect spelling. That using that alphabet chart is a great reference for students who are still getting some mastery over those sounds. Modeling, always modeling. Kids and really adults, all learners learn from those models. The picture is great, and some consistency. Yes, this video would provide some consistency for students so that they're hearing, their parents are understanding what we're doing at school and can support that at home. So they're hearing the same message at home and at school. So you found quite a few. So thinking about space and materials specifically, I have found it really helpful to encourage parents and caregivers as much as possible to have a specific space at home for writing, a designated space. I have 3 teenagers, so it was a little bit different for us in this time of COVID. They had desks, but I know that other families had a clipboard and a cup with writing tools. So, but having that designated space where students can always find the materials that they need and always have a learning space, it cues their brain too when they get to that space, like, oh, this is the space for learning. This isn't the space for sleeping. This isn't the space for playing. This is the space where I'm going to do some learning and some writing. So having those materials accessible is important too. So in that space, you might encourage teachers or caregivers to have available pencils, pens. Our youngest learners find a lot of joy, and in fact I do too, in colorful pens and different kinds of tools. Tape, scissors, post-it notes are very exciting, and we can I know some people get a little concerned that our students might be consumers of those post-its in different ways, but we can teach them how to use these tools. And then of course paper and notebook. One of the things that I found this year is that a lot of our kids didn't have notebooks at home. And so we got creative and thought about what could we use besides paper or notebooks. So we used the inside of boxes inside pantries. We used long CVS receipts that they could write on the backs of those things. So we got creative in finding different things that students could use for their writing. Yes, love the Mr. Sketch smelly markers. I'm a big fan of the Paper Mate Flare pens too. So then, oops, it popped up early. Generating ideas is also really important. One of the things that we hear a lot from our youngest learners is, what do I have to write about? What am I going to write about? And so we can help support them by helping them look for topics. And I've already given away one of the ways that we can do that. So we can help them generate ideas around places, things, people, things they care about, things they do, things they know a lot about. There are so many students that we encounter that have expertise over trains or dinosaurs or places, specific places. So we can help them to collect those ideas and generate those ideas so they're not reliant on the teacher for what they're going to be, or the adult in their lives that's going to be help providing that topic, that they can do this independently. So one of the things that you might encourage is a collection of ideas. This is called a heart map. This first picture that just popped up is called a heart map. And in that heart map, students can fill the spaces in their heart with the things that they love or the things that they spend a lot of time doing. There's also something called an eye map, and you can do this a couple of different ways. You can do this I am a, and it might be more of like a nonfiction eye map, or you can do it with more of a narrative bend, like I am a traveler, and they could start to collect the things that they like to do. I also students love to collect things. They're always collecting rocks or feathers or brochures from the zoo. So you could maybe provide them with a box. They could decorate the box and keep items in there. And when they're looking for an idea to write about, they could look in through that box. Tiny sketch notebooks. We know that real authors, I should say we're all real authors, but published adult authors like Kate DiCamillo carries around a tiny notebook and jots down ideas as she has them. And then I added this Polaroid. These are really popular with young kids. I think they can even get film that have like stickers, so they could stick that sticker or tape that picture right in their notebook with their topic to write about. All of these things can bring so much joy and personal expertise to their writing, which brings motivation and engagement that isn't always there when we say, write about a time you rode your bike. So then we're going to talk a little bit about writing partners. Family members are excellent partners. One thing you might have noticed in the video is how I was counting and I was repeating that sentence. And every time I was repeating that sentence, it was giving another opportunity for oral rehearsal. So I was hearing and making those sounds. So I was hearing them, I was producing them with my mouth. And so every time I did that, I was rehearsing so that I was ready to generate those sounds. And when we rehearse with a family member or when we rehearse with a partner, it gives us that opportunity to develop our story even more. So oral rehearsal gives students an opportunity to develop the story and to revise it. With each telling, they're maybe adding more. You might encourage them by saying things like, now when you tell the story, say what the people said. And so then they're adding dialogue. Or now when you tell the story, say what you were seeing. What colors did you see? So you're encouraging them to revise along the way. Other writing partners could be virtual writing partners. Our kids have gotten really, really good at Zooming or FaceTiming. So telling their stories to people who are far away is also a great way to rehearse. Sharing stories with pets or stuffed animals is very motivating for students too. Whenever I have 2 dogs here, as you saw in that video, whenever my dogs would come into my office when I was at home for most of this year, the kids wanted to tell their stories or they wanted to read to them. So that can be also very motivating. And when we're in our classrooms, we might not have those physical pets available, those live pets available, but we can use stuffed animals or other stuffies too. So we're going to watch another video. In this video, you'll see Amanda Hartman. She's a staff developer at Teachers College, and you can access at Columbia University. You can access other of their videos online. But I wanted to share this video because Amanda does some work with this young child to grow his writing. And as we're watching, I want you to be thinking about how a teacher could do this work virtually with a student if we're virtual during the summer. I know some of us are participating in virtual summer programs or tutoring. How could a teacher support parents doing this work at home? And then what did this student need to be successful in their independent writing? So when the student left this experience, what were the things that set them up for success? So here we'll watch a little bit of this.
Okay, so what I do is I try to think about the things that I do, right? The things that I do are great stories. Like I walk to school in the morning and I go swimming and I ride my bike in the park. That would make a great story that I have. I've got a great story about me riding my bike in the park. I go reading my books in the park. Do you see how I do like lots of different things? What kinds of things do you do, Harold?
Oh, when I get dressed to go to school,
Oh my gosh, that's something that you do. That would be an interesting story. What else do you like to do?
go to the beach.
Oh my gosh, you go to the beach. I love going to the beach too. What else do you like to do?
I swim.
Oh my gosh, look, you've got 3 stories. You've got one about coming to school in the morning, getting dressed, one going to the beach and playing at the beach, and one going swimming. Which one do you think you want to write today?
No, I'm getting dressed to go to school.
Okay, let's try to tell it. Go ahead, let's try to tell it.
First, I was putting on my shirt, and I was putting on my pants. Then I put on my shoes.
Uh-oh, and here's the last page. What did you do when you got everything on?
I walked to school.
Oh my gosh! See, let's try to tell it again, okay?
Okay.
So we want to start right from the part where you're waking up and getting your clothes on. Ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
First I wake up. Then I put on my shirt. Then I put on my pants. And I put on my shoes. Then I walk to school.
Wow, that's you getting up in the morning and going to school. That's really great, Harold. And that's a true story, right? Did that really happen to you? Yeah, that really happened to you. Great. Let's try to tell the story about going to the beach. You want to hold the book?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Go ahead.
First, I go to the beach and then eat lunch.
Oh, I love eating lunch at the beach.
Then I get swimming. Then I eat my snack and then I leave.
Wow, that's a great story, Harold. Wow, so let me see. Let's see if we can remember it, though, okay?
Okay.
We gotta remember all the details. Okay, so one day, go ahead.
First, I came to the beach and I ate lunch.
Okay.
Then I was swimming with my mom.
Oh, with your mom. Oh, that's important. Okay.
Then I ate snacks and they left.
That's a great story, Harold. Great. So now you just told a story about going to the beach that you can go write during writing time. So when you're doing your writing, Harold, I want you to be thinking about true stories from your life, okay?
All right.
And then when you're thinking about them and you're having a hard time coming up with an idea, think about what are things that I'd like to do.
All right.
And you can put that into a story.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
All right, off we go.
Harold is a cutie. I remember the first time I saw that too. Harold just makes you want to confer with writers all day long, especially our youngest ones. So how could a teacher do this work with a student in the classroom? How could teachers support caregivers doing this work at home? And what did the student need to be successful in their independent writing? So what I was hoping that we could do right now, and I know we only have a few people here, but if there is anyone who wants to unmute and share, or if you want to share an idea in the chat, something around how this video or this work with the student could help our youngest writers at home, at school, and being successful in their independent writing. Yeah, Harold is a cutie. Feel free to populate the chat or just to come on the microphone.
I was just typing and I typed slowly, so I thought I'd say it. But I think this video is wonderful for caregivers because it shows how simplistic writing starts out as. I think people who aren't used to working with little kids are like, oh no, but we got to tell them about capital letters and we have to teach them about periods and they have to have a subject and, you know, all these things that we take the joy out of the whole process. And with her, it was just the simple joy of speaking it and turning a page to show that each thing would be on a page to then go back and tell the story again and add details. There was no physical writing taking place, but it's the start of the writing process. And I think lots of parents don't understand that. So seeing that as it's happening would be wonderful for parents.
Mm-hmm. And he left with two different story ideas. So he's going to be a busy writer for a little while too. And she can take some time and come back and check in with him. And so just getting those ideas started and getting that flow of writing. Michelle said in the chat, I think just a chance to talk to someone about ideas. Sometimes we make them seem hard or they just don't know how to help. Really, it's just about sharing ideas and encouraging them to go write. And I think even as adults, we do that, right? We get some ideas, we might call up a friend or a colleague and start to ruminate on those ideas before we start to put them into writing or into practice. So it's the same for our youngest learners, that opportunity to collaborate with someone and to get that feedback. Did you notice? She was excited and she was giving him that feedback. And the more she gave him the feedback, the more excited he got. She was having him hold the book. So she's transferring, like, it's not my story. This is your story. You own this writing. So all of those pieces are really building that engagement and that joy and that desire to go and do that writing. I just imagine Harold leaving that space with that smile and heading right back to his seat to get those ideas down on paper. There is a lengthy video on the Teachers College website if you want to look and learn more about Harold and his writing that day. So audience and purpose is so important. So who can an audience be? I know I had 3 kids under the age of 3. So as they've been growing up and my husband travels, so it was often the audience was just me. And sometimes at the end of the day, I would say, like, on the ride home, we're just going to be quiet for a few minutes because we just needed that decompression time. And then the rest of the night was filled with all of their words. So we can share all of their words with lots of other people. Grandparents are some of the greatest audience members because they want to hear all the words all the time. So sharing that audience, that responsibility of being your child's audience with family or friends, people in the neighborhood or the community, classmates. Most of our kids, even our youngest learners, know how to connect with their classmates now in a virtual space. And I always recommend that parents monitor that or have some systems set up so that it's a safe space. Teachers, and also I always tell students too, with this influx of technology and Seesaw and other tools that students have had at their fingertips, they could record their voices telling their story and then go back and listen to it again and retell it again, seeing if they can add some more details or some more ideas, extend their stories a little bit. So the kinds of writing, we can encourage different kinds of writing also. And for some students, this makes all the difference because they might see one particular kind of writing and think that that's the only kind. And for example, when we hand students like a 3 or 5 page or multiple page booklet and we're encouraging them to write, that can be really intimidating for some of our writers. So we can also encourage them to write letters, which is one piece of paper, maybe a little less intimidating. Maybe they have something in their community or in their area that they're passionate about, and so they want to make a sign or a poster for the park. Poetry is another great lens, and sometimes songwriting. I have a lot of students who really love to write songs. Stories, they can write stories like we just saw Harold do. How to. I've seen such creativity from kids during, especially this pandemic. They know how to do so much. They've planted gardens, they've repaired things at home, they've built bird houses. So they could perhaps teach others how to do that. Cooking, they've done a lot of cooking. And information or teaching journals or teaching writing, and then even a daily journal. And sometimes even just giving kids like a calendar with just a little box, and they can write just 1 or 2 things that they did on that day. And that could be another place where they could go to generate a larger story. So just kind of looking at some of these pieces, we see this child has some magnetic letters that they're writing a message and some things on the refrigerator, mailing a letter. Let me see, we have a couple more here. Couple more ideas if I can get them to come up. Let's see. Okay, so maybe having a space in your home where you can celebrate your child's writing, hanging it up, putting it up around the house. Here's a really important one on hand washing. So that might be something that they could display in a prominent place that could help others to remember. Here's one about littering at the park and how they want to encourage others in their community to take care of the park. And lastly, this is a question, as some of you have brought up in the chat, this is a question that I get a lot from parents. Their spelling just isn't great. And how do I help them with their spelling? And so one of the things that we as teachers, as educators, need to keep in mind is that developmental progression, and that isn't always obvious to parents and caregivers. So we want to help them with that progression. So first, we want to help them to do the things that we did that you saw in the first video that I was demonstrating. So thinking of the word, saying it slowly. Sometimes I even have kids like pretend they have taffy or gum in their hands, and we stretch out the sounds and we listen for what sounds we hear. And then we start to write the sounds that we're hearing, and we can check it with our chart. So this might be a chart that you share with your students or with caregivers to support their writing at home. Writing longer words, we say it. Then we can clap the syllables. So we can break it up into parts, and then we can stretch out or spell each of the parts and then put them together in one longer word. And then finally, we can encourage kids to generate without the burden of correct spelling, and then teach them that skill of editing and revising. And I see Lisa just said, I don't understand this hang up on spelling when so many apps. I totally agree with you. So there are so many apps. I know my kids are using Google Docs, and it kind of does that squiggly underline so they know when a word is misspelled. There are so many tools, but I think one of the big hangups is that well, I know I'm probably older than a lot of your students, but when I was a kid, we didn't have all those apps. We had the dictionary. So we didn't have the squiggly underline to tell us when words were being misspelled. So parents reflect on the experiences that they had when they were in school. So we can help them to understand the development of children, and we can also help them to understand the importance of letting the voices be heard and letting students generate and get their ideas down, and then how we can utilize the tools and resources that we have available to us. But writing also gives us a window into the mastery that students have with spelling and sounds. So when we look at their writing, we can help students. We can look and see, like, where are the vowel teams that they're not quite recognizing? What about beginning and ending sounds are secure, but not those vowel sounds in the middle? So writing is definitely another window that can help us to tailor some of our other instruction in small groups or in phonics. Yes, the app should support, but not replace it. I totally agree. So we're going to see another video. This was created by a staff developer and coach in California. Her name is Erica Reardon, and she shared this publicly on her YouTube site, so you could find other videos that she has created. But she is writing at home with her young daughter. And this is another example of a video that you could share with parents. So we're going to take a look at McKenna and her writing.
Okay, so tell them how you did it.
So how I do it, you guys maybe do it another way, but how I do it, I draw the letters.
First you have to think about what.
Well, I have to think about the sounds, and then I find it on my chart, and then I draw the letters on here.
You write the letters. That's we went word by word, and we started with our first word, we, right? And we had to think about what sound we heard at the beginning, and we weren't really sure. So what did we do? We used our
a letter chart.
Yep. And we found the sounds that matched. All right, so let's show them really quickly how we might do page 2. So page 2.
Well, I want to say I like to swim in the water.
Okay, so Nook, you think Nook likes to swim in the water?
Yes.
Should we use the word I like to swim or Nook likes to swim? What do you think?
I like to swim.
Okay, because he's telling the story now?
Yeah.
Okay, let's count how many words are in that sentence. I like to swim in the
ocean.
ocean. Okay, how many words was that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7 words.
Boys.
Okay, so let's make 7 words. Count them with me.
1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And there's a period at the end.
Yes.
The first word is what? I. What does that sound like? The letter I. Okay, do you need to practice on a practice page?
So some letters, some words do that. So like that's the sound and that's the letter.
That's right.
And that's the so if sometimes the sound is actually the letter.
That's right. And we know that in the word I, it's actually the letter I. Now, do you remember how to write the letter I?
Yeah.
You do? Or do you need to practice on your practice page?
Well, I first have to practice.
Okay, so we set up a practice page here.
Yes.
And anytime before we put it permanently in our book, if we need to practice something, we practice it on our practice page. So let's practice. Do you need to look at your chart?
Yes.
Okay. Find your letter I.
Igloo. Where's
That's
the
right.
igloo?
Where's the igloo?
Oh, wait, here.
There it
I
is.
need to practice this one. I'm not really good at
Okay.
that one.
Go ahead. Practice it on your practice page. Oh my goodness. Now check your chart. Does it look the same? Does it look the same? Oh, you did a capital and a lowercase. Does
So,
it look at your chart? Does that look like an I?
Yeah.
Are you ready to put it in your book?
Yeah.
All right. Do it, girlfriend.
I'm
All
ready.
right. You're ready. Capital I. Okay, we'll use the lowercase for today. That's okay. So I, and then what's our next word? I like. You said I like to swim in the ocean. The word is like. Like. Can you show our friends how you would stretch through that word on your arm? Like. Like. Now catch the first sound in like. Good. Ooh. Now, ladybug. Does that sound like?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. And I think you know how to write an L, so you're ready to write it. Oh, this is our second word. We're going to write it right there. Ooh.
Oh, McKenna, doesn't she just make you want to write all day with little kids? So a couple of things, I'm going to let you kind of process this a little bit. This would usually be if we had a large group where I would have you kind of think about what you just saw. Maybe I call it a think, ink, share. So think, write down a couple of ideas. And then if you want to unmute and share, or if you want to populate the chat with those ideas, what teaching do you think came before this video? So what were some of the things that happened ahead of this experience that set her up for success? And then what skills or strategies did you notice that she had independent, like she could do those on her own with very little support? And then what do you think might come next that could help this writer to be even more confident than she already is, or more independent? So take just a couple of minutes right now. Think, ink, and share. So it's been about a minute. If anyone has anything that they noticed that would have been helpful to teach McKenna before this interaction with her mom, that you could share, that would be great. Or what skills and strategies did you notice that McKenna had that she could really do independently? And then what could we do next to support this young writer? And if you're watching this on the recording, You know, hopefully you've written down some of these ideas, and you could be maybe even envisioning a writer that you know, a young writer that you know, and how you might support them to have an experience like McKenna just had. So Michelle just said how to use those sounds. She seems very comfortable using her tools, and she's really looking at it and she has it there. And the relationship, exactly, that relationship with her mom. I think probably even her relationship with her teacher. I like to think that maybe McKenna is modeling. She's really teaching in this video. Her mom has it set up and is saying like, you know, what do you want to teach other people about being a writer? And so she's teaching in this video. And so I'm imagining that she's also probably mimicking some of the things that she's seen her teacher do that she has found helpful. The chart and practice page were great to build confidence. And then it says, again, the pressure is off. Michelle is saying she's having fun. All ideas are good ideas. She can write whatever she says, and she knows this. She knows that she's in charge of this experience. Another thing that I noticed in this video is that they were using coloring book pages, which is another tool that you could have for your students. So those coloring books often come with characters that students love or children love and they're familiar with, and then you could then encourage your child to add words to this, maybe adding speech bubbles, or like McKenna, adding words to tell the story at the bottom. So just a joy-filled experience. So just to review again, we talked today about space and materials and how that can be helpful in supporting our youngest learners. We talked about generating ideas. We talked about writing partners when we're at home and when we're at school, and then how important that audience and purpose can be. And then finally, ways that we can support our students and really our parents in kind of that shift away from perfect spelling to really a more developmental spelling. So one last piece that we're going to talk about today, we'll put it in the chat. I was going to use a Mentimeter, a Menti, but since we just have a few people here, I think we'll just put it in the chat for now and share it out that way. But what are 2 ideas from today that you think could support our writers at home and in school? So something that you saw today that you might try, even I have 3 weeks left of school. I'm not sure where all of you are coming from. I know some people are wrapping up sooner, but what's something that you could try as soon as tomorrow? And then what are some ideas that we could add to these ideas that could support writers and their caregivers? Something that we maybe haven't mentioned yet today. Yeah, so go ahead and populate the chat. Michelle is saying, I'm reading it for the Zoom, for the recording too. So I think finding examples and sharing some of these video examples would be great. Sometimes parents don't know how to help, but seeing examples makes it seem less daunting. It really does make it feel easy and more accessible to caregivers who aren't teachers, aren't educators by trade. Let's see. Is it Kathleen? Kathleen says, I'm going to try the coloring book with my little. I think it's a great way to engage boys and not only hand motor skills, but also in telling stories to support their writing. Absolutely, finding those pieces. Allison said, every day is a fresh start. Enjoy the writing rather than getting bogged down in it. Yes, yes. And I think that's another piece that's really nice to some of those short pieces, like poems and songs or a letter or a sign. Some of those, when students haven't yet developed their stamina for writing, those can be a little less intimidating. Then you kind of get to the other end of things where they just keep adding pages because they want to have the biggest book possible. So we kind of run the gamut there. Jesse said, even my 10-year-old son might be more inspired to bring his writing into multimedia, writing a script for his characters, and then also giving words to the characters on a page speaks to my writers. Absolutely. Even my earliest readers, my emergent readers, we often will add speech bubbles. Sometimes we jot down in those speech bubbles, like in a shared writing activity, we'll jot down some of those ideas. Sometimes we just think them, like, what do we think the character might be thinking, or what do we think the character might be saying? And there are some really fun post-it notes that are in the shape of thought bubbles or speech bubbles, and you can add those throughout the text to encourage some of that comprehension and thought generating too. And Michelle said, as teachers, I think reminding parents that they don't need to be teaching their children as much as just encouraging their children to write. Worry less about spelling and grammar and enjoy the process. Keep the light in the child sharing their ideas, make it fun. Absolutely. Even my soon to be, I have one graduating in just a couple of weeks from high school and moving on to college. And her best writing is coming from those topics and those ideas where she finds joy. Her joy right now is around social justice and mental health initiatives. And so when she's writing about those things, you can see that light that was there when she was in kindergarten writing about her first horseback riding lesson. So we can find those pieces for our students. So to end today, I have a Jamboard. I'm going to put it in the chat for those who are watching this on the recording. I'll try to put it on Twitter so you can find it there, but I'm going to put it in the chat. This is just a place for us to all share some of our ideas from today that we can keep beyond today. So some of the ideas that you've put in the chat and some of the ideas that you've shared when you've come on mic and shared, those will be able to be added to this Jamboard if you so choose. And then that'll be a resource for us to have moving beyond today. So it looks like we're wrapping up a little bit early. That's the end of my presentation for that I have planned, but I am here. I know we have at least a few people here. If there's anyone here who has a question or who wants more information about something that we shared today, feel free to drop it in the chat or to unmute and ask your question, and we can have that conversation together. And then, yeah, Tamika just added, love that Michelle is adding that they're learning. The expectation is not perfection. It is the opportunity to practice and hopefully build passion. I think somebody earlier in the chat said that we're focusing on the product, not the perfection. Like we're focusing on the process, not the perfect product at the end. I remember even as a young teacher, I thought, oh, I need a parent volunteer to retype and correct their writing so we can display it in the hall. But that's not what it's all about. It's about the developmental nature of things. I sometimes remember when my children were approximating words and we thought it was super cute. So when they would say Piscetti or Mapkin, we would kind of embrace those words and use them as adults ourselves because it was so cute. And writing is the same way. It's a celebration of those approximations, those risks, and that joy that we can find. So we just need to keep in mind that that they're still so little, they're still learning, and we want to capture that joy so that they continue to do this work instead of being fearful that taking those risks puts them in a situation that doesn't feel safe to share their ideas. Yes, some of those words were so cute that our kids would say. We still, I have twins who are freshmen this year, and my oldest is Allie, and when they were first talking, they called her and my kids, sometimes they still call her so we have all of these things. So. All right, I'm going to stop talking. If anybody wants to ask a question or pop something into the chat, I'm happy to stay on for the next 10 minutes. And thank you for coming today. And if you're watching later on demand, it's nice to connect with you, and feel free to connect with me further via email or Twitter.